Welcome to episode 6 of the Theo Jaffe podcast. Today, I had the pleasure of speaking with Razib Khan. Razib is a geneticist, the CXO and CSO of a biotech startup, and a writer and podcaster with interests in genetics, genomics, evolution, history, and politics. Today, we talk about all of these things plus more: the difference between genetics and memetics, the origins of domesticated animals, an inside view on the rationalist community, and one of social science's most controversial findings. This is the Theo Jaffe podcast. Thank you for listening. And now, here's Razib Khan. Hi, welcome back to episode 6 of the Theo Jaffe podcast. Here today with Razib Khan.
Nice to meet you, Theo. And I'm excited to talk to you.
Awesome. So, first question, you're the CXO of a genetics company called Genrait. So, what does your day job look like? Like, what do you do specifically?
I'm on a lot of calls right now. So I'm not really heads down on doing like science development much anymore, unfortunately, although I try to spend some hours every week doing that. Otherwise, I'll lose my touch. But yeah, I'm on calls. I'm doing biz dev. I'm managing our head of science. Okay. We work together. Okay. Don't want to give the wrong impression. I like to be like, okay, we're colleagues, So for the scientific development with our customers. I reach out to customers. I've gotten candidly most of the customers at this point, founder-led sales. So yeah, my day job is like I'm on calls a lot, responding to emails, sending out emails, and then I talk, to a scientist about like how the science is going and what we need to do. There are a few things in population genetics, like evolutionary stuff, where I know more than her. She comes out of more like a straight kind of like comparative genomics for the people out there, like comparative genomics type background. And she's definitely much better to me than me upstream on the cycle of data generation, data analysis. But I've done a lot more of the later stuff, I guess. And so sometimes there are science things where it's like I need to come in and kind of do stuff. But mostly I just do a mix of a lot of things. And that's the biggest difference that I have seen being a founder versus like I have a lot of equity in the company and I have a C in front of my title, as opposed to being a high level employee, which I have been before at startups, where you kind of are heads down and you're kind of narrow focused, whereas if you're a founder you just have to do what you have to do. And a lot of it, I was telling a friend yesterday that learning when you're at a startup, especially when you're first time founder, is just making a lot of mistakes and learning from those mistakes. If you make a mistake and you don't, can I swear?
Sure.
If you don't fuck up, you're not actually going to learn because it doesn't stick with you. Sometimes you make a mistake and it works out. You don't get caught. You're actually not going to learn from that. Whenever you fuck up pretty bad, you're never really going to forget it. So a lot of the mistakes that we've made is how we learn as founders, is what I feel. And so there's a lot of cliches that people say, but once you're a founder, you understand where those cliches come from. I will say that. Yeah, but I'm on a lot of Zoom calls like this.
What is the CXO, by the way?
Experience. So I'm kind of CXO slash CSO. If we talk to like biotech people, I would more say CSO, but in general, we're
As like
pivoting.
sales?
Um, no, CSO is science.
Oh,
Yeah. But if we're talking to like more infotech, IT, data science, we'll say CXO because that's more of a Silicon Valley tech thing. So my two co-founders come out of Silicon Valley tech. I obviously come out of science, but yeah. So on LinkedIn, I think I have CXO/CSO just to make it clearer for people. But when it comes to like presentations and we're talking to mostly investors, I will say CXO just because they're mostly tech investors actually. So the company is mostly it's tech. It's a tech company. It works in data, and we're just our domain, our vertical, as they would say, is biology. Does that make sense?
yeah. How did you get into genetics and genomics in the first place?
I've always been interested in the topic. My undergrad background is in biochemistry, kind of came up at a time where molecular biology was big. And the first time I took a biology course that had a genetics component, I'm like, oh, this is fun. I found it interesting. It's a historical science. I've always been interested in history. Also with genetics, there's a few big principles you memorize and you can derive from it. It's a little bit like physics in that way. Francis Crick was a physicist. In a lot of theoretical population biology and population genetics, a lot of people come from physics backgrounds. R.A. Fisher actually was a math guy who worked in thermodynamics. So Fisher is like, Fisher's, ANOVA and all these like Fisherian, the Fisher statistics methods, like with max likelihood. But he was also an evolutionary geneticist, and he kind of fused Mendelian genetics with evolutionary biology. And so, with genetics, you don't have to memorize as much stuff as you do in other parts of biology. Like, for example, neuroscience just, they don't have a good theory. Genetics, we have a good theory. We have a good short-term theory in terms of the Mendelian system. And then we have evolutionary biology, evolution, right? So it's a very system oriented branch of biology. I've always been interested in biology. And, my strengths, I think, are in systems orientation. So that's how I got interested in it. Obviously, I'm interested in evolution. I've always been interested in evolutionary biology, interested in history. Genetics can, explore history, as a tool. So in game theory is applied in both evolutionary biology, evolutionary genetics, and in economics. And the difference is in genetics, we have evolutionary genetics, we have genes. Whereas in economics, they have currency, and we feel that genes are much more systematic and clear in terms of the currency of fitness, right? And so that's why I like genetics, because we have the substrate. It's like it's a reductionistic science that way. You start from the foundation, and you can derive from the foundation, or you can derive back to the foundation. You can abduce back to the foundation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What are the pieces of the foundation that you were talking about that you can derive from?
So, for example, Mendel's laws, the law of segregation, the law of independent assortment. So basically, they didn't know about DNA they didn't know the structure of the DNA until obviously the 50s. There were some arguments before. They knew that DNA was probably associated with inheritance and transmission in the 40s, maybe even earlier. But Mendel did not know anything about DNA. He just saw the patterns. And so genetics is basically looking at the patterns and figuring out, okay, how are the patterns of the traits occurring? And so the law of segregation is, you're getting one of your gene copies from each parent. They're segregating. You have two gene copies, and you're getting from one parent. And the law of assortment, independent assortment, is the traits are inherited independently. And we know that because now we understand different parts of DNA code for different traits, and different parts of DNA are inherited in independent ways, depending on whether they're in chromosomes or depending on they're really far apart in the genome. So recombinations breaking things up. And so basically, when you're talking about cultural evolution, it's very, very plastic, and everything, it can happen really fast. You can maintain huge differences between cultures, et cetera, because there's just so much power with cultural evolution. There's very few restrictions. And so model building with cultural evolution does have some problems related to that. With genetics, there's limitations, and the ground rules are very restrictive, right? So with genetics, you are 50% one parent, 50% the other parent. With things like selection, they can only occur like at a certain magnitude, because the underlying molecular biology, the physical substrate of how the information is encoded, is very, very restrictive. Compared to memes, right? Memes are plastic and kind of chaotic. Genes are very structured. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Although it is kind of interesting how much of memetics was just like kind of ripped from genetics and how well it works to a point.
Yeah, so a lot of the cultural evolution is taking population genetic methods, population and quantitative genetic methods, and applying them to culture. And but people like Michael Muthukrishna, who I don't know when you're going to post this, but I did a podcast with him. It'll come out when his new book comes out. But people like Joe Henrich, Michael Muthukrishna earlier, Cavalli Forza, Peter Richardson, Robert Boyd, et cetera, all these people. So they're using these evolutionary biology, evolutionary genetics methods, because they think that I know Michael in particular, but Joe will also tell you this. They think that the evolutionary theory framework actually is the better framework to understand culture and psychology and economics, all of these things. Their argument, well, economics, I guess there's Homo economicus, there's neoclassical theory, there's some theory there. I don't want to overdo it, but disciplines like psychology, Michael's written about this, have a problem because they don't have a good theory. So they just have all these independent studies, And he thinks the evolutionary theory can be very, very powerful. That's why evolutionary psychology is so popular, even though it has a lot of problems, because it has a theory. Imagine biology. Neuroscience doesn't have a theory either. Consciousness is kind of the theory, but it's not. There's all these arguments about consciousness right now, about which theories are good and which. It's like, it's like imagine before 1859, before Darwin's, ideas. That's what a lot of these sorts of like scientific scholarships, social scientific scholarships, disciplines are still like, so.
With memes in particular, like especially with internet memes, like I wonder what makes some so ridiculously enduring and what makes some like just flare up and get all over the internet for like a few days and then just vanish. Like Wojak, for example. You have this like bad drawing of like an exploitable face that you can edit. And then, what is it? 10, 15 years later, like every other meme has a Wojak in it.
Yeah. So this is a complicated in terms of like you can come at it in two ways. There's a cultural evolution model, which is like looking at the culture and the variation and how the selection happens kind of exogenously, externally. But Dan Sperber and these cognitive anthropologists who are evolutionary anthropologists in France, like Scott Atran is part of this tradition, they actually kind of start more from evolutionary psychology, and they think memes adapt to the landscape of your brain. So certain ideas are just attracted to your there. He uses attractors and repeller. Certain ideas. There's attractors and like they're salient. So Pascal Boyer is a cognitive psychologist at St. Louis. WashU. He's written about religion, but in general, he along with people like Atran have talked about how for ideas to be attractive, they need to be somewhat counterintuitive, but not so counterintuitive that they're not relatable. So something like the Wojak. Let's like think about it. It's kind of weird, but it kind of makes sense. Like it's not like totally incomprehensible, And so ideas that persist are comprehensible, but they're salient. They're salient because they're somewhat different. And so that's the broad class of things that, that we think of that are kind of like interesting memes, Or for example, yeah, I mean, just like stuff like that is an issue. The other thing is, memes can like hitchhike onto like, cultural ideas can hit cultural success. So like say the Star of David, okay? It's a cool star, but its particular configuration is associated with the Jewish people who've been around for a long time, and they've influenced a lot of other cultures. And so that meme kind of hijacked. There's nothing special about the Star of David, aside from its connection to the Jewish people, right? And so memes can also like hijack. And this is again has a genetic analog. There's called like hitchhiking, which is the hijacking of genes along another gene that's being selected that it's next to, you know? And so again, it shows the correspondence between these different things. So I would say there's a couple of things going on. You have to adapt to the brain. Once that's done, you can figure out other things exogenously that things can adapt to, right? So for example, swastikas are found in a lot of cultures. Like most people know they're Indian. Um, but obviously they're not popular in the West because they got attached to Nazis, So
Yeah.
swastikas are actually cognitively appealing in some ways. They're like kind of like an attractive symbol, but then it got associated on the cultural scale to Nazis, and so they're not attractive anymore, right? So those two things are balancing out. In the East, in Asia, swastikas are all over the place still, like in Buddhist and Hindu culture still.
Do you do anything related to animals, by the way, or just human genetics?
My background is as a mammalian genomicist, so I worked in cats and dogs and mules, well, which is actually like donkeys, really. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, I was super interested in domestication, domestic animals when I was in graduate school.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what you did with mammalian genomics in grad school?
Yeah, I mean, like, some of it was like figuring out where cats are going. Cats are like, the Garden of Eden of cats is actually kind of close to the Garden of Eden. Whereas for humans, it's Africa, but in cats, it's like probably West Asia, Egypt. And so I found, and I think that, people like later people in this lab have like extended it much further than me, but it's like cats can be divided into like Eastern and Western cats. The Eastern and Western cats are actually like Mesopotamia versus like Egypt and the Levant originally. And then like these two branches move west and east. So Siamese cats, East Asian cats are from like these Iranian cats. Originally, they're not Iranian, Persian, because this was like a long time ago, like Neolithic, right? They're not like, unlike dogs, they weren't domesticated before the Neolithic. They're domesticated in the last 10,000 years. And then you have the Western cats that come from Egypt. There's some early remains in Cyprus, probably related to an Egyptian culture. Then they go into Europe. They actually don't go into Northern Europe. Domestic cats don't go into Northern Europe until the Roman Empire. So they're very late. They follow cities. So cats tend to like cities. Why are they different than dogs? Well, dogs can follow nomadic bands. Cats cannot. They're too small, right? And so you have wildcats in Europe that they're hybridizing with. So there's some hybridization going on there. But ultimately, the cats in Europe are from Egypt and Syria. And those are the predominant dominant cats actually in the world. They're all over the place. You see their genetics everywhere. So they obviously are spreading with European colonialism. And then there's like the indigenous cats of the East in particular, in Southeast Asia and in China. And those are somewhat distinct and have preserved their distinctions. But just like with dogs, you see the spread of cat genomics all over the world. With horses and donkeys, with these sorts of equids, what's interesting evolutionarily is they're not as close as, say, there's other lineages where there's hybridization where they're very close, like European wildcats. And going back to what I was just talking about, excuse me, I gotta sneeze. European wildcats with domestic cats are very close. With horses, they're far enough that you have like sterility, like mules are mostly sterile. But there's a lot of gene flow between the different equid lineages, between different types of donkeys, the onagers and the wild asses, as well as with different horse lineages. The Mongolian horse has a different chromosome number than the domestic horse, which is derived from one particular horse lineage in the southern Urals. And so horses have like these weird like chromosomal issues going on that are interesting from an evolutionary perspective. We now know from ancient DNA that there were probably multiple horse domestications, but all the domestic horses, the Calibus, are from the South Urals, from the Santashta culture. But it looks like there were earlier domestication events. And there's also a Chinese horse, a European horse. And some of these horse ancestries did get into some local horse lineages. The Mongolian wild horse is actually descended from what's called the bowtie horse, which is the horse of the Kazakh steppe. And it looks like the bowtie people of the Kazakh steppe actually rode these horses, but they were eventually marginalized and they went feral, and now they're in Mongolia as Mongolian wild horse.
What distinguishes the animals that we were able to domesticate from the ones that we weren't? Like we domesticated wolves, but not like bears.
Yeah, well, wolves have it's too simplistic to say wolves are just alpha and out the two alphas, but wolves are hierarchical social organisms. Bears are not. So the stylized fact, which again I don't want to like overdo it because it gets a little simple, is that we became the alpha for the wolf. Also, just to be clear, it looks like the dog was domesticated maybe as early as 30 to 40,000 years ago, very early on, with the arrival of modern humans into Siberia, and it's derived from a wolf population that went extinct. So there are no people. The dogs are basically just wolves. I think that's actually kind of simplistic because if you look at a dingo, that's a feral dog. It never became a wolf. Okay, so dogs are not just wolves. They've evolved to the point where they're a different species, probably, even though they're totally interfertile. All the wolves of Eurasia and North America are actually descended from relatively newly diversified lineage of wolves. All the old wolves kind of like disappeared. And so dogs are probably from some sort of Siberian wolf that no longer exists. And they've mutated and changed to the point where they can't reverse back. Cats are not like that. Cats can go back to kind of being like wild tabbies, European wildcats a little bit. European wildcats are a little bigger. They look more like tabbies. But dogs have changed so much that they never go back. Wolves do much more provisioning of their offspring. Dogs rely on humans. Wolves are kind of smarter. Dogs are a little dumber, et cetera, et cetera. Dogs have diverged from wolves. So the dingo is what a feral dog is. And the dingo is kind of wildish, but it's not a wolf, is it? Right. So they have definitely changed over time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. It reminds me of CGP Grey, YouTuber I like, had a video a while ago where he tried to answer the question of like a lot of Native Americans were wiped out by like old world diseases, but there was no corresponding like plague that the Native Americans brought to wipe out the old world. And he said the reason for that is because they weren't densely populated cities, and the reason for that was because there are no domesticated animals. So I
Yeah.
think that's a good explanation.
It's okay. So what I would say is like the issue, and like there's actually a recent paper that came out with ancient DNA. It looks like zoonotic diseases are a big thing, and zoonotic diseases really kicked off about 5,000 years ago with nomadism, with like exclusive nomadism. And so these are diseases that are jumping from animals. It looks like the Yamnaya pastoralists, originally Indo-Europeans, really spread them all around Eurasia, and created kind of a common pathogen pool. There were diseases that are associated with farmers in Neolithic Europe that are like worse than the ones that were during the forager times. We definitely did have cities like Tenochtitlan, Tiahuanaca. I can't pronounce that, but you guys know what I'm saying. So those cities are more like,
Teotihuacan.
yeah, most cities are more like Neolithic cities in Europe. And yes, the lack of domesticates, the main effect disease-wise that it has is it I think limited the spread to each city. Whereas if you had like pastoralists that are going between the cities all the time and that are connected transcontinentally, the pathogens sweep from one end to the other. And so it really took it up to the next level. The only domestic animal, well, I mean, they have the llama. The llama's domestic. But guinea pigs, llama, and dogs. And the dogs come from the old world. They come from Siberian domestic dogs. The huskies are definitely related to the Siberian domestic lineages.
Well, when you said the plagues were largely confined to the cities in the Americas, like how is that not the case for when the Europeans came? Because when the Europeans came, if I remember correctly, the predominant theory says that the natives trading spread it like far further into the continent, far quicker than the Europeans
Sure,
colonized.
sure. Yeah, but my point is these diseases are going to be much more powerful and virulent because they're in Eurasia, their rate of evolution is going to be faster because the size, it doesn't matter if it's in a city or not because you have long distance nomads. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
nomads can go from one end of the steppe in a year. Okay, so I mean, this is not totally borne out necessarily, but in Plagues and Peoples with McNeil, he thinks it's East Eurasian gerbils that really incubated the Black Death, and so it's in the eastern part of the Eurasian steppe, and eventually spread to the western steppe and spread to Europe, right? And so what I'm getting at is during the Neolithic period, without long distance nomadism, there is some pastoralism in Europe even before the Yamnaya. I don't want to say that there wasn't. But before long distance nomadism, the pathogen networks are smaller. When you have smaller networks, evolution can't evolve, the superbug as easily, right? So this is one of the reasons that globalization and people flying everywhere is a problem. COVID-19 would not have happened, probably. I mean, it wouldn't have happened before the age of Columbus. It would have like remained. It wouldn't have been like a global pandemic. It would have been a local epidemic. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But does flying have anything to do with it, or is it like long distance shipping too? Because the Spanish flu took over the
Yeah,
world.
yeah. I mean, that's why I said it before Columbus.
There.
Yeah,
Speaking of ancient history, have you seen the like new evidence recently for civilization being a lot older than we thought it was? Robin
yeah,
Hansen wants to
sure.
speak about this.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think Robin got it from Samo, my friend Samo Buria. I think that's probably true.
Oh, and
Um,
Semaburia.
yeah. So Samo's really been pushing it. So I think it's probably true. What Samo said on my podcast was he's like, like it's not like that advanced, more like ancient Egypt maybe. But I think it's probably correct. The issue here is it's just really old stuff disappears really fast. And we don't it's really perishable. Um, Egypt is dry and it's only 5,000 years ago, right? So imagine, I don't know, I'm just making this up, as my co-founder would say. Imagine a pyramid in Mexico, in southern Mexico, 16,000 years ago. Okay, I'm just making this up, but maybe it's a little smaller than Giza, but it's rainy. There's jungles everywhere, and it's 16,000 years, not 5,000 years, right? So we just have like a lot more issues with preservation. With these small scale like Neolithic societies. So I wouldn't be surprised if we discover, I wouldn't be shocked. I think it'd be cool if we discovered a civilization after um the last glacial maximum about like 20,000 years ago. So maybe like before the ice age ends, there's somewhere where there's a civilization and it's an incipient civilization and went extinct, right? And we see this like um with so for example, Mycenaean civilization collapses. Greeks didn't even know that those were their ancestors. They lost literacy, they lost cultural memory. They thought that the citadels their ancestors created were like made by Slycops. This is only like a 400-year max 400-year gap. Probably arguably less. There was probably like local areas like places like Ubia where the Mycenaeans persisted a little longer. But in a couple centuries they just lost all memory. And so I think this is quite plausible that somewhere probably in the old world there was a civilization and it disappeared. And we might like discover some stone artifacts or something else, and that will probably kind of like blow our minds or whatever. But that's my opinion.
So does that answer the
Yeah, I
question
agree.
what took everything
Yeah.
so long? Like there's an article I read a while ago that was like, what took everything so long? And it was talking about how, like, how did it possibly take humans, tens of thousands of years to invent like rope or like weaving or boats or something? Like they're all very obvious things if you think about it. And so is the answer like actually they did, and it was just lost before they could reach
I think,
like the critical mass necessary to bootstrap
yeah,
into like today's civilization?
I think a lot of that is true. I think what it is cultural evolution people like Joe Henrich did some early work on this, quantitatively, formally modeling it. But William McNeill in the Human Web, his last book before he died, talked about how like redundancy and synergy became like a much bigger deal, and you can see it across history. So like the early collapses, like the Bronze Age collapses, they resulted in like total wipeout, cultural memory wipeout, or very close. The later ones did not. If you look at Chinese history, the interregnum between dynasties shrinks pretty much each time. And so the idea is institutions and robustness is increasing monotonically over time. In Eurasia, for example, Indus Valley civilization, they seem to have some sort of like writing system, a primitive writing system that disappeared. Indians got writing from West Asia. All the Indian writing systems are derived from Aramaic. And so once that happened, though, um, literacy never disappeared after like alphabetic systems. Where it did disappear, it was reconstituted very quickly. That it's famous that literacy mostly disappeared in Western Europe outside of these monasteries and a few elite areas, but then it just shows back up because the monasteries serve as institutional reservoirs. Although, Byzantines and Islamic Spain influence also was a big deal. Without the Byzantines, most of the Greek classics would not, the Greek humanistic classics would not exist in the West and would not have persisted, right? And so the Byzantines persisted, like, so the Euripides, Aristophanes, the Muslims didn't care about that, okay? They only cared about philosophy, they cared about Aristotle and Plato. So they kept those, and they have really good translations of those. Byzantines have those too, but really where they shone was through the humanism because they had cultural continuity with the ancients in that way because they're Greek speaking. And so you're seeing like in real time, I'm giving you a concrete example of like how the redundancy works. So in the past, you might not have that sort of situation. You have like one civilization with a couple of geniuses, they invent a few things, and then the civilization winks out, but it wasn't copied anywhere else because there were no other civilizations. At least they weren't close enough. And so you need like closeness and interchange, and that creates like an information network. It's kind of like the internet. The internet, it could mostly disappear, but they model it that a nuclear war couldn't take it all out because there'd be enough nodes around for stuff to transmit, right?
Yeah. Speaking of old writings, have you seen Nat Friedman's Vesuvius Challenge?
Yeah. My friend, apparently the winner found out about it by watching a podcast with my friend Dwarkesh Patel, on his podcast, with Nat. So yeah, that's really cool. A lot of that's going to be a big deal. The other thing related to that is there's a lot of old cuneiform that hasn't been translated. A lot. Okay, so these are like these tablets, and most people obviously do not know how to translate cuneiform tablets, and apparently there's like scanning software that can do it now with regular writing, but they're apparently not good with cuneiform yet. But with machine learning and these AI techniques, they're going to get really good. So we will actually know a lot more about Mesopotamia and the Near East in the near future, because all these museums have things that they just haven't been able to translate because like obviously cuneiform translators like they have other things to do. It's kind of a boring job, and I don't think you want to devote your whole career to just like looking at tablets and translating it, right? So
Yeah.
but a computer would be okay with that, just doing that 24/7.
Yeah, what was it like? Euler said that like it wasn't Euler, it was some mathematician who was like, the minds of great men are wasted on like computation when machines should be doing it.
Yeah, computers used to be used to be like, high school educated women, right?
Yeah.
Like those were the original computers, and then they were replaced by machines. Yes.
Yeah, I'm taking linear algebra right now and like doing the computations, like matrix multiplications by hand. I'm like, wow, I'm so glad that we have invented computers so I don't have to do this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I took linear algebra as well, and then like you get in MATLAB, and you're like, okay, this is great.
Much better.
Yeah.
Talk about the past a bit. What do you think about how often do you think about the future, like transhumanism, when it comes to genetics?
Somewhat. I was on the edge of I wouldn't say hanger on. I don't know what word I use, but like, between 2007 and 2011, I was part of the Bay Area transhumanists, what became the rationalist scene. So I went to the Singularity Summit. I was friends with the president of the Singularity Institute. I knew Eliezer pretty well. Robin, all of those people. Obviously my focus hasn't, I'm not like super all in on that, but here's a concrete thought. Back when I was interested in that scene, it was mostly like dorky guys with some dorky women that were kind of like on the spectrum, and they were super interested in transhumanism and cybernetics and body modification and extension. Today we do have transhumanism. It's the trans movement, and it's totally different in terms of like who does it. And it's an identity group. It's a marginalized group now. It's associated with the radical cultural left. It's a totally different thing, but it is transhumanism. Like having like gender modification by like changing your body,
Well, are
taking
steroids
hormones.
transhumanism?
What?
Are steroids transhumanism?
I mean, arguably it is,
What do you
right?
think counts? If being transgender counts.
I mean, I think basically like anything that uses modern, I mean, because I don't think like the herbal stuff can really do it. But I mean, if you just like, if you change your body plan, you change your body chemistry in an extensive way, I think that is transhumanism.
So do people who take like medications, SSRIs, anti-anxiety medication, is that also
Well, we don't know what I mean, I don't think we know enough about SSRIs because like if I have like high cholesterol and I take medication to get the cholesterol back to normal, I don't think that's transhumanism because that's just wild type,
because
right?
that's what?
It's just wild type. Like if I get my leg cut off and we can like regrow a leg and I'm back to normal, that's not transhumanism. That's just repairing back to the wild type, right? That's like wild type human. So in genetics, you have wild type, right? So that's just like the non-mutated version.
Oh, okay. So just like fixing something that's broken is different from improving
That's
something.
just called that's just called medicine or
Yeah.
the aim of medicine. You know. Now, if you like okay, let's say I get my legs cut off and I can regrow it like I'm a lizard or whatever with a tail. Okay, back to the same length. That is not transhumanism. If I grow it back and they're like 15 feet long, that is transhumanism. Okay.
So do you think that the overall impact of the transgender movement for the transhumanist movement has been good or bad?
I think it's generally been bad. I think it's making people much more skeptical of transhumanism because um, transhumanism as a choice of an individual that wants to push the frontier is different than transhumanism as a society and culture defining shift. Like the original transhumanists were not an interest group that wanted new laws. They just wanted to push the frontiers of science, right? But the new transhumanists, and they don't call themselves transhumanists, but that is what they are. I mean, they're actually, and like, I don't know if you're like socially integrated into that world, but a lot of the people in 2010 that were into transhumanism and posthumanism, there's a substantial minority that did actually go switch their genders. They often tended to be gay men, basically, that became trans women. But so there's a cultural overlap between the two groups. Although they're not, obviously the majority are not from the old transhumanists, but of the old transhumanists, a really high number did change their gender.
It really is interesting how similar like the rationalists, transhumanists, those people are TESCREALists, as they like to say, but also just so different politically. Like you have people like Rocco who are like, oh, we like should not allow immigration at all. And then you have people.
Yeah, I know him. I knew him 15 years ago. By the way, he was totally different then. Just so you know, like I knew him before he was famous. He was very normy. He was one of the most normal people in that scene in the Bay Area. Like I knew him in real life. So
Interesting.
this is like an evolution over time. I was way more fucking based than him. Like I exposed him to a lot of things, you know? So he was like, "Oh, okay," you know, like he was a normie. I don't know if people know that because like, you know, now he's like pretty like infamous or whatever. He's like a edge. He's not an edge lord. He's like super like out there. But back
Yeah,
then, he was the by far one of the most, actually him and Michael Anisimov, who became a Nazi, were actually the normal people in that rationalist scene.
really. I wonder how you explain that one. I mean, I guess like he was kind of out there when it comes to his opinions on like AI risk. Like I don't think anybody was thinking much about S risk at the time until he mentioned it. I mean, I heard
But
of Rocco's
yeah,
basilisk like long, long, long before I actually knew who Rocco was.
yeah. So I don't remember the whole details, but there was actually a massive falling out between him and Eliezer. I think it was around 2009 or 2010, and he basically left the U.S. right after that because he was kind of not unpersoned because that's not what you do in the rationalist community, but um, you know, I don't want to say this, but I
Shunned.
will say that he wasn't shunned, but there's like a cult like aspect of Eliezer does not like, you know, and that's not true anymore. It's not about Eliezer, but back then, a lot of it was about Eliezer Yudkowsky and like his ideas, and there was like a circle around him. And Rocco was kicked out of Eliezer's circle by like a massive disagreement on less wrong, and now it's much more diverse, obviously, but there was a social personal aspect to the divergence and the evolution of Rocco, I think.
Yeah, didn't Eliezer call him like a fucking idiot and then like remove the original post because it was an info hazard or something?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the other issue I would say is also, you know, I do want to say like I still know Rocco. We still like talk a little bit, so it's not like I'm talking about someone I don't know. You know, I'm not saying anything that I wouldn't say to his face. You know, but just saying.
Yeah. So far, I think just about everybody that I've had on this podcast has had some level of connection to like Eliezer Yudkowsky and rationalism. Like the closest was probably when I interviewed Zvi Auschwitz, who I'm sure you know if you know all these people.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've hung out with him.
yeah. So I mean, like I'm surprised because I didn't know you were, but I guess all roads lead to Rome. Um,
I don't like it's not like a big part of my brand, and actually people are like a little surprised when they find out that I was there.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, I was there. I was on the edge. Well, part of it is also because I know you were gonna ask me about like my more edgy beliefs is a lot of the rationalists are you know they have edgy beliefs on group differences and stuff like that that they don't advertise because the marketing is not great, right? But so they probably wouldn't want people to know that I was just there at all the parties.
Hmm.
So
How did you get involved with them in the first place, especially so early?
no, I lived in the Bay Area and reading me very early on. Again, like most of the rationalists are not they're not normies. They're born not normies, right? So, you know, they go where the evidence leads and they're interested in all sorts of different things. I don't know if you know Michael Vassar. Michael Vassar and I have known each other since 2003. Uh, and so he was president of the Singularity Institute for a while in the late 2000s. I think he got like Me Too'd or something. I don't know the details. Michael and I only talk like every 6 months now. But so there are people in the rationalist community before it was called the rationalist community, but when it was mostly like transhumanism, and we were going to like you know Singularity Summit, maybe the Bill conferences. Aubrey de Grey was there. You know, Peter was still funding them, and it was around Eliezer,
Peter
and it was
Thiel?
before. Yeah, yeah. He was a big backer early on.
Hmm.
He's like very turned off now, but
Yeah,
in
I
the
can imagine.
2000s, he was a very, very big backer of Eliezer. And, you know, what was the Singularity Institute became Machine Learning Institute.
And then
Yeah,
they
like
turn
I'm,
into D cells.
yeah, some of them did. I mean, originally it was like, there were like, you know, whiteboards trying to figure out how to make friendly AI and stuff back then, you know? And then Eliezer decided we're not going to be able to do that. We have to stop it. And so the issue is like there's other people in the community or out of in that circle that are not D cells and like you know that don't think AI is you know strong AI or like general artificial general intelligence is going to take over and destroy everything. I mean I have friends who didn't have kids because they thought AGI was going to be around and here in the 2020s, which is not totally crazy now with the LLMs, but we'll see. But yeah, this is like 2008, and I had friends that were like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna have kids because I think we're just doomed." And there's still people like that. They think the probability is low. Yeah.
I think it's kind of funny that you said there are people sitting around with whiteboards trying to design friendly AI. It's like I don't know how people thought that building friendly AI would be easy. It's like the Dartmouth summit back in the 50s. They said that like they thought they would have a working human level AI by the end of the summer. And then like Eliezer thought that he could build it like by himself and save the world in a similar time frame.
I mean, there were people who, I'm not going to say who because whatever, they're not like public people. There were people who thought it was BS. So the rationalist community, what I would say is there was an aspect of it which is like, okay, we're here to save the world. Just like in the scientific world, like we're here to like understand the world. But then there was an aspect that was very social because like all of a sudden you're not the weirdo. And everyone's a weirdo. And if everyone's a weirdo, no one's a weirdo. I think I haven't changed very much in terms of I don't know. Like a lot of people have changed a lot, over there. Like I've never been like liberal, never been religious. I've never been like really a hardcore rationalist insofar as like thinking that I can redesign everything from first principles. But I've seen like a
Optimize
lot of
literally everything forever.
yeah, that's a very common view. And I would argue with the rationalists back then. Like a lot of post rationalism, that was me back then. I don't like use the word, like I said, I'm not part of the community. Like I've never been poly, like I'm relatively normie in my behavior and in my like
Yeah,
social norms.
same. I'm not
Uh
poly either. I don't get it.
yeah, well, okay, so I'll tell you, like, it's weird. Hume said like what like reason is and ought to be like a slave to passions. And I would just tell them, like, bros, you guys are just the same. Like you're rationalizing being poly. And there are people I know who like would be like, poly is the only way to be, like that is the correct way. And then it did work out for them. And then they're like, monogamy is the correct way. And I'm like, I think you're just rationalizing everything that
Yeah.
and so because I was like, because like it would be really, that was one reason why I probably didn't get super involved in it, because I would get sick of arguments where people were trying to convince me. Elias would kind of like this too. He does, like he's still kind of a new atheist. I've always been an atheist, but I was never a new atheist. And it's like, you should not believe in God because it's wrong. And I'm going to like argue with it. And they would do that with everything to some extent. Not everybody, but a lot of them would. And so that's why I was always like on the edge, because like I enjoyed hanging out with them. And there was a lot of things that were great about them. But the excessive adherence to like trying to like reason out everything in your life, it was just exhausting and led to, People's Front of Judea versus Judea People Front type of conflicts.
Just ridiculous levels of infighting. When did you
Yeah.
when did you leave the community?
I've always still been like on the edge. Like I went to grad school in 2000, end of 2011 at Davis, so I was close. I would go back periodically. Here in Austin, I am still on the edge of the less strong community insofar as like I go to some of their meetups. I have like well, I mean, so I have like social things that I organize,
Did you
and
go to
my
Vibe
so
Camp?
no, but I was there. I didn't go. I don't want to be around naked people. Okay. Like I know the kind of stuff that they do, and like I don't want to stumble on an orgy. Okay, I just like need
Like
to put
what
that
what
out there.
was Vibe Camp? Like
The one that
was
was in
it
Austin, the one that was in Austin had like a little bit too much of a Burning Man vibe. From what I know and from who was there. So I mean, Ayla still lives. I don't know if I should say. Ayla is in and around Austin some of the time. I think she does admit that. I don't want to, I'm not trying to dox her, but there's people
yeah,
like
she's
her. Scott Aronson's here. I hang out with Scott sometimes. So I'm still I'm still like integrated with the rationalists. It's just a lot of them moved from the SF. Patry Friedman recently moved from SF, Bay Area, to Austin. So a lot of them have come here after I came here. So that there's that. I mean, I'm also like part of the right wing scene here. That's a different thing. So my own like my social network is like, like if I throw a party, there'll be like a bunch of scientists, a bunch of techies, a bunch of right wing activists and rationalists. Like that's basically,
hmm,
and then like there's some civilians. Like I have friends that are just
civilians.
entrepreneurs. Yeah, like one of my closest friends, like I'm not gonna like dox him, but like he has he's in the food and beverage industry, and I don't mean that he's a waiter. I mean like he's a wholesaler and he does that. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, he hangs out with me and like he's kind of curious about rationalism and Scott Anderson. That's why he hangs out with me. But he's definitely a civilian. Like he's not part of any of these like weird groups. He's like a normal person and normal looking person with a normal woke girlfriend who gets triggered by me.
Yeah. By Vibe Camp though, I meant the one in Maryland.
I didn't know all the controversies. I knew Michael Kersey back when he was also one of the normal guys.
Yeah.
Well, I met Michael in 2008. He was super chill, super nice, super normal. So now he's like this big like shitster on the internet. His sister was involved with Leverage. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone's like smashed everyone, if you know what I'm saying. So it's interesting to me. All that stuff that's happening. Grimes is on the edge of the community. She's back in California now, but I see her around and I tweeted out a picture with her, but she didn't like the picture, so I deleted it. But like on Instagram, the Grimes fans kept it. They're like asking who I was.
It's kind of interesting. There's like so much overlap now between like the nerdy sci-fi tech bro rationality future people and like the, like K-pop stan, like music fan people who like Grimes.
What? Yeah, I mean, it's probably because of the Elon connection, and
Yeah.
I've never talked to him, but I've been at parties where he's been at, and so Elon, there's the whole rationalist and effective altruism community interaction. I mean, arguably I know effective altruism, Will McCaskill and stuff, all those people, yes, like explicitly, but look, EA type thinking was there from the beginning because they're rationalists, you know, and I mean, Caroline Ellison was a big fan of my blog. You can like see the screenshots there. She Hey Caroline, if you're listening, I did respond to your DM. I'm sorry I didn't follow you back, so I didn't see it originally. But I have a friend, and she was funded by SBF for her PhD, and so I always tell people that she had sex with SBF. She didn't, but you know what? I say it enough, it's gonna be true.
Yeah, I mean, SPF did that with like everyone, about his like penthouse in the Bahamas where like all the FTX employees were like just
Yeah,
camping there with their
yeah,
stolen money.
yeah, yeah.
The whole situation is ridiculous. I cannot wait for them to make a movie out of it
Yes, yes. There's a
or a
lot of stuff
miniseries or
there.
something. So have you read the sequences in full?
No, 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 no. I'm not that hardcore. I have friends who have, but I'm not that hardcore. I mean, a lot of my friends are like, that's how they came into rationalism, right? The sequences, but no. But I mean, I was there before the sequences, so what do I need to
Yeah.
read?
Do not cite the ancient magic to me, which I was there when it was written.
I mean, there's a little. I mean, I'm older now, so I was back when I was your age, like. And I was like bright eyed and bushy tailed, but I have seen the things that I have seen, like tears in the rain. It's just like I've seen people come and go, people like blow up, people fade, and I feel like I've kind of been the same, maybe I'm a little bit more well known than I was, but like, I'm a startup bro, I'm focused on that. I got 3 kids, and I've never been poly, I don't know, just like I've never like done any of the weird, I don't know, this like community of like transhumanists, rationalists, whatever, these kind of weird out there people, they've gone through so many different ups and downs, and I've just like observed it. I'm an observer, and there's people like Altman who've been, like it's mainstream now, it's not even like countercultural, like Altman's a big deal with OpenAI, like these
Did
people
you see his
are
bio?
with that Eliezer thing.
Yeah, he changed his bio to
Yeah,
like Eliezer Yudkowsky fan fiction account.
yeah, but he hates Eliezer.
Really? He's only
I
met him
heard that.
once, as far as I know.
I mean, are you talking about the time that Elon took him to meet Eliezer?
No, I mean the time that. Oh, you mean the joke post?
I don't remember, but it was like he was like, "Don't ever like bring this moron."
Yeah, that was an Oppenheimer reference.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know,
but
but
there was one like famous picture from like months and months ago, maybe not a year ago. It was Eliezer, Sam Altman, and Grimes at like a club together, and he said it was everyone's first time pairwise meeting each other.
okay,
So does Sam? I
okay.
don't think Sam hates Eliezer. I think he thinks he's wrong about AI risk. Although I think he also
There's
thinks
a there's a lot of people who like really have strong feelings about Eliezer and thinks that Eliezer is going to inspire terrorism now. There's a lot of like, effective accelerationists or whatever you want to call them. Yeah, my social circle after ChatGPT is like split down the middle. Some of them are scared. A lot of them are super scared. A lot of people in academia are super scared too. And then like a bunch of people in artificial intelligence are like, we need to ride the tiger.
what do you think?
Like I probably lean to the second. Right now, I do probably because like, look, I'm a startup guy, and my startup like has an AI component. I probably use ChatGPT every day. I do look at it as a tool, and we got to figure out how to use this tool. I'm not a mystic about like, oh, like, it has to be our like, squishy wetware that creates the soul or anything like that. I don't believe that, but um, I do think that it's going to be a while. I think it's possible, but it's going to be a while before. But I don't have like a strong confidence in that, and I know that I'm self-interested. Like my company has like we're gonna plan to do AI related stuff. Everyone has to keep up. So another issue is like if we ban AI, if we do what Eliezer says, what's gonna stop China? Like we need like a Butlerian jihad. So unless Eliezer wants to become Serena Butler, it, it's futile.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is kind of what he wants. He's like backtracked on this a little. Um, but he said like, even like the risk of a nuclear war between two countries would be preferable to like one of them building an AGI. And
Yeah,
now he like goes on Twitter saying, I never called for drone striking AI labs, but like,
but someone's gonna do it. Someone's gonna like some crazy person. It's gonna be like cosmic pizza, right? It's gonna be like some crazy person watching the Alex Jones show goes to shoot up cosmic pizza because they're like kids in the whatever. You know what I'm saying?
oh, pizza.
Someone's gonna take yeah, someone's gonna take Eliezer literally and seriously. So yeah.
Mm, I don't know. I mean, Eliezer has like specifically said, don't do that because it will make the movement look bad. Terrorism
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah,
not good for
but
political success.
retarded people don't know any of that. And they might not hear it. They might be like, "Oh, he's secretly communicating to me that this is a lie." Like I can see the way he's winking or something.
Oh, and if the
Yeah,
last week is any evidence, like not everybody's going to condemn terrorism.
yeah, that's fair. That's
Not even
fair.
close to everybody.
No, no, they'll be like, I mean, there are Christians who are just like, that are like they're demons. Artificial intelligence is a potential demon. Because I'm in right wing circles. Like I know people who are religious, and they're like aliens are demons, artificial intelligence is demons. So, yeah.
Artificial intelligence is like a gift given to us by God to like explore the universe or something.
Yeah, that's a
I'm
more. I think
techno pessimism,
Mormons are like more like that. But the
really.
normal tridentine Christians, yeah, because Mormons believe in apotheosis.
Oh,
Mormons believe that God was a human, a physical human being, immortal. So Mormons are a little bit different than typical Christian, which like separates the divine and the mortal very precisely.
hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got a little off track. I'm talking about transhumanism. So, what are you most looking forward to with human genetic enhancement?
The abolition of genetic disease, which is feasible. So for example, cystic fibrosis, a lot of people that are alive today will now live, I believe, 30, 40, 50 years now. I mean, if you have a child with cystic fibrosis right now, that child will be cured within 10 years. I do believe that because we know the gene for cystic fibrosis, we know what to target. And with CRISPR genetic engineering technology, we will be able to deliver it. If we can deliver it well, we will be able to rescue enough function that people can survive normally. They're never
For
going to
people
be
who are already
marathon
alive?
runners. Yes, yes, yes. Because the way they do it will be like some sort of spray, and it'll modify about like 10 to 20% of the tissue, and that's enough to live. Okay.
Hmm.
So right now, people with CF they die in their 40s if it's good. Some rare cases live into their 50s, but I think it's like 30 to 45 or something like that.
What is CF?
Um, Cystic fibrosis.
Yeah.
So it's basically it's a lung disease. your lungs, I think like there's the salt. Okay, I'm not good with like mechanistic biology, but like it's like the salt concentrations out of whack, your lungs dry out, and basically it's like you have like lifelong pneumonia.
Oy.
Yeah, yeah, it's bad. So it's carried Europeans in particular, like a minority of Europeans carry it, like so like 5%. Carry the CF mutation. And so you do 5% times 5%. Those are the people that are born with CF. So it's a very small percentage. But they're born with CF. They carry two copies. All you need to do is like fix the cell. If it's a single gene disease, you know, you can fix it, right? And there are other genes like ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. It's quite often at like one gene. Jerry's kids. Again, all you need is to make the muscle good enough so that the heart and lungs can continue to function. They're never going to be like jacked, they're never going to be like super muscular, like doing curls or something like that, but they'll be able to live, right? So morbidity is still going to be around in terms of their subfunctional, but their mortality is going to be much better.
What about Alzheimer's? Like how Chris Hemsworth has like a gene that gives him some chance of getting premature Alzheimer's.
Yeah, so those genes have like yeah, and I know that gene. So those genes have incomplete penetrance, which means that there's a lot of variables. So the bang for the buck is lower there. That's down the line. Maybe in 30 to 40 years, we're going to be able to do a lot of cool things. Like if you want to have like pink skin, you can have pink skin. But I'm talking like 40 years down the line to do like these sorts of cosmetic things. I think the curing of disease is going to be the coolest thing that's going to happen in like, you know, it will definitely happen in my lifetime. It will definitely probably happen in the next 20 years. It will probably happen in the next 10 years and a lot of diseases are going to start to get cured. Like after 2025, by 2030, a lot of diseases are going to start to get cured. Various types of, you know, diseases, the type of kids that go to St. Jude, you know, they have
Oh,
congenital diseases, you know, they have diseases that little kids have. And, they present because of some genetic illness really early on, CF, Lou Gehrig's disease, probably some types of like, a lot of cancers and other things have genetic basis. Probably type 1 diabetes will probably be cured, stuff like that. So, I mean, some of it it's gonna like save your life a lot. Some of it will like improve your quality of life almost to normal, and so that's gonna be a big deal. Later on, there will be other things like, okay, can you be smarter? Can you be stronger? Yes, but like to improve function is a lot harder than to just fix something that's broken, if that makes sense.
do you think that most of the human improvements, transhumanist type things of the future will be biostack or silicon stack? Because with the silicon stack, we
Oh
have
yeah,
stuff
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like Neuralink,
Yeah.
we have like nanotechnology, we have like um, fully immersive VR.
Yeah, so this is an argument that again goes back to the 2000s, gray versus like red kind of, biostack, silicon stack. Some of this stuff like nanotechnology, what little I know about it is it's going to be a really long time before we ever get nanotechnology as good as our molecular machinery. I don't know why, but it is how it is. So I'm not like optimistic on that. Nanotechnology, like artificial intelligence and robotics, has always been 10 years in the future, and like nuclear fusion. Now, with artificial intelligence, that 10 years is getting legit now, not so robotics. Nuclear fusion is kind of in the middle, I think, from what I've heard from friends. It's they're literally getting legit. But the point is, there's certain things like nanotechnology I'm not like super optimistic about. Neuralink, we'll see. I hope it works, but I think they have a long way to go. I haven't looked at it in detail. They've been talking about these sorts of things, like obviously for like a long time, and early on, it looks super unrealistic. I think like in terms of cybernetics, I can imagine. I have some friends that are super into this actually. Just basically Alita Battle Angel type stuff, where like you can imagine like your arms and legs being replaced. I think we're gonna have to do that probably for I can see how organs could be replaced with stem cell, and so that's going to be a big revolution, by the way, because organ matching problems will disappear if you can use your own stem cells to grow organs. Okay, that I can see how that would happen. Replacing legs biologically by growing another leg, I don't see how that can happen, or I don't know the biology well enough to, but that seems like less plausible to me than say an organ which is less differentiated tissue. Okay, But I can see how you could have like a cybernet, artificial limbs, right? And so you would do that for people that got into accidents and whatnot, and you connect the nerves, etc. I think that there's already primitive forms of this, to my knowledge, I've seen. And so that's going to be the start. And then eventually some people are like, you know what? I just want to replace most of my body with these awesome things because I want to like get into like fights and like whatever. I mean, you can imagine soldiers, you can imagine soldiers volunteering, special forces, you know? So I think that that sort of stuff is going to happen. But I think in terms of the gray stuff, in terms of silicon, in terms of integrating with humans, I think the core of humanity, our brain, other stuff like that, our brain in particular, is going to be still wetware for a while. That's what my intuition
Well,
is.
will there even be soldiers in this transhumanist cybernetic future, or will we just use robots? Why send humans?
Robots are, yeah, but humanoid, android, robot, right now, like they have severe limitations. Robot, you know what I'm saying? Like, so robots like go crazy, like whatever heuristics they have, like they'll jump into a wall. Like they'll be good 99% of the time, then they jump into a wall, and the robot's destroyed, right? So yes, in theory, we will have good robots, but it seems like that's just a harder problem than people have anticipated. I mean, when I was a kid in the 80s, I read about like, robots in those little books, and it was like by 1999 you will have a robot made. I mean, we're really really far from that. The Roomba doesn't count.
Yeah, I guess Roomba is pretty cool anyway, though, if you don't like vacuuming.
Well, robots are really good. Robots and artificial intelligences are really, with these heuristics, are really good at doing like precise invariant things. Being a soldier is not a precise invariant thing. So, for example, I don't know if you're looking at this, but like, for example, the average special forces soldier is about 5'10". The reason they're not huge, they're not like some jacked giant, is that jacked giants have no endurance. So if you're a very, very large man, it's harder to pull yourself up over obstacles. Obviously, if you're too small, you're not going to be strong enough. And so the ideal special forces soldier is about 5'10". So they have the balance between strength, agility, and endurance, right? So it's not like even a average human. Obviously, it's like someone very specialized. So imagining having a robot that can balance all these things and doesn't like, have like an irrational spur moment in the middle of a mission, that's not going to work, right? And like, robots, like even robots like the ones that are going to Mars, where there's like nothing complicated, they have problems, which is fine. You can fix the problems with programming, engineering, wait 3 months for the dust storm to clear or whatever. But in a war, you don't have time.
So, going a bit into like culture and politics. So, one of the most controversial ideas in social science is like the whole bell curve thing, right? The observed finding that A, IQ is correlated highly with a lot of important things, and B, that different races have different average observed IQs. So, what do you think about this?
Well, I mean, you've read my stuff. You know what I think about it.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, it's obviously true and like predicts a lot of things. So, I reviewed, my friend Charles Murray's book, like Facing Reality. I kind of gave it like a middling review because I was like, don't we all know this? But it depends. A lot of people are pretty stupid. They don't know any of this, or
How
they
would you
didn't like
explain
grow up.
this to like an average woke person though?
You wouldn't. They can't. They're not going to be able to take it in.
Well, I
They're
mean,
not. I mean, how do you explain it to an average woke person?
I don't, but like,
There you go.
some people I know like used to buy into the idea that like all traits are distributed equally, and then over time came to realize maybe not.
Yeah, so they have to come to it themselves. Like this isn't an issue. This isn't an issue that is really easy. Um, Basically, what they will say, like they have. I mean, you can argue with them and kind of get them further. So, for example, the SAT test scores, their predictability is pretty good across groups. So, if they're actually discriminatory and biased, their predictability wouldn't be good. So, the SAT score of a black person does predict their grades, just like it predicts a white person's grades. right? If it was biased, it wouldn't predict the grades well, right? Their predictability would vary. That's how ETS, Educational Testing Service, checks for discrimination and bias. So, there used to be the old stuff like, oh, well, only like, upper class white people know what a yacht is or something like that, right? Well, that's going to reduce the predictability. They try to get away from those. They want things that have generalizable prediction value, right? So you can like explain people stuff like that. But a lot of it is like people are just going to refuse to believe that the groups differ in any way, and they think it's like bias, and that's fine. I'm not going to like spend a lot of time like arguing about that, because people just need to like, I don't know. I mean, look, the reality is like, for example, like you're Jewish. Jewish people have higher IQs than Gentile whites. I would say like about like I was like talking about this like the other day. I think like about like 15 to 20% of my closest friends are Jewish at any given time. Like about like 2 to 3% of the American population is Jewish. So Jews are highly overrepresented. Like, why is that? I mean, you know why it is. Like I'm like part of the professional managerial class,
The
et
people
cetera,
of
et
the book.
cetera. Yeah, I mean, I'm just like it's like I'm in social circles where there's a lot of Jewish people, and why is that? I mean, I think most people would be more open to agreeing that okay, Jewish people are, whether it's genetic or not, they're smarter, right? Like there's two steps. One step is are there group differences even like a lot of people do not know, by the way, that the different like they don't know anything about the bell curve chart anymore. Like your generation has been like kind of that's been erased from a lot of the record. It used to be when I was growing up that people would acknowledge that there were average outcome differences in the tests, but they were due to discrimination. Now people don't even know that there's outcome differences. Okay. So
I
you have to
think
tell
they
them that.
basically know that.
No, a lot of people don't. Like I was in graduate school. I can tell you a lot of people don't. Okay. You do because you have like a different social milieu. But I can tell you, I was in graduate school. A lot of people do not. They're shocked because like I get concretely like I was encountered people that would not understand why we didn't have like certain ethnic groups in our program, and I said, well, we filter at a certain GRE score, and they didn't understand what I was getting at. That's why I had to look it up for them, and they were shocked.
Hmm.
So they didn't know, right? So they don't know that fact. So that fact has to be acknowledged, and then after that, you could talk about like, okay, what does that predict? Talk about predictability and psychometrics, and then of course you get to like the third rail of like, could the group differences be somewhat hardwired? And that's really difficult because then you need to like talk about genetics. So it's like people have to get to it themselves. Most of the time, I don't really try to like explain it. As far as like woke people, like no, I don't want to. No, it's like I don't believe in
Just
God
don't even touch it.
exists. Look, I do, but I'm weird. I'm not going to recommend it to other people. Like I still have like a upper middle class income, and I haven't been totally canceled. But I mean, I'm very weird. I'm very disagreeable. I'm very aggressive. Most people are not going to be able to handle what I've been through. You know, so I just don't recommend it. I don't think you're going to be able to handle it. Like I've had friends who've tried it, and they got really burned. They're like stressed and traumatized. I'm like, okay, whatever. You just it's only few people that can like go out there and like say, God is dead or something like that. Right. So I'm not going to tell. I mean, most of my religious friends know I'm an atheist, but I don't argue with them about it. Like, what's the point? They're not going to be convinced. They have to come to it themselves. I think I'm right. I think they're wrong. They think I'm wrong and they're right, but there's no like benefit for us arguing about it. You know what I'm saying? And so like some of these things with like woke people or people on the far left, there's no benefit arguing about it, because they're not going to be convinced through an argument. Maybe you could expose them to some facts and just like let it be, and then they have different explanations for those facts, and that's fine for them. Um, I will tell you like um, I'm not gonna say I have to be a little vague to try to protect the innocent, but I know someone who's pretty normally conventionally liberal, not really woke because they're a little too old to be woke, but not like based or, there are liberal people like Peter Singer is based left, right? He's not like one of those people. He's just like a normal liberal guy. And,
Like in
he's
2008 Obama liberal type.
yeah, that maybe that, but maybe a little bit more liberal. Like he's an academic, he's a math guy, and he's tries to do the DEI stuff, like he's department of his chair, or he was a department chair. They admitted people below their average test scores from underrepresented groups. Okay. And it was a disaster because math is hard and you can't like fake it. And basically, it was a disaster for everybody. because all of those students had to withdraw after the first year because they just did not have the ability. And like, hey, I don't have the ability to be a math graduate student, so no hate on them, you know. But he was pretty depressed about it because it was kind of like it destroyed their self-esteem, wasted a year of their life, et cetera, et cetera. It was really stressful for them. A lot of people in the department were trying to help them out, and it was just a waste because they lost them as graduate students. They lost them as that future academics. They just didn't have that possibility. And it made him, I mean, I guess I just like told you the person's gender, but it made him, and I'm not going to say he's like a Charles Murray believer, but at some point he's just like, he basically said, we can't ever do that again. We can't ever go through that again. So I don't know what that says, but that's not a person that's like, sitting around like Charles Murray or somebody who's like super like Rocco or people who are obsessed with these like hate facts or whatever you want to call them. He's not one of those people. He's just a normal academic liberal person, but he straight up said we can never do that again because they don't want it. It was a harrowing experience because they had this theory that like if we just expose them, they will like rise up, and it crushed the people that they admitted. It crushed their spirit. It crushed a lot of the academic spirit to like try to help them out, and they just couldn't measure up, etc. The person also told me that a very, very high fraction of the admitted female graduate students were trans women. And I mean, I guess I can say this. I mean, basically, when they like, this math faculty at a research one university, but not like one of the top ones, but research one, not trivial. They have totally different standards for males and females. Totally different. So it's like for a female that they hire, usually there's going to be 30 males that they would rank higher.
Yeah,
Their
like
top female.
how
Yeah,
MIT has more than twice as many male applicants versus female applicants, and there are roughly similar numbers of
yeah,
men versus
yeah.
women who get in.
So I don't know. I mean, it's like it's difficult. I don't know what to do about it because I'm not like psychologically normal, and I have a lot of experience talking to people about it. I mean, a lot of people that like, I'll be candid. A lot of people give me advice, like I'm like, I mean, you're a pussy. Like you've never said anything like controversial in public in your life, so don't give me advice. You know? I mean, seriously, like people are like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. I'm like, you're a pussy. You've never given any clue to anybody that you're like you have any based views. So this is all theory for you while I've like had to do this for 20 fucking years. Like I've never said anything on
Praxis.
the internet. I've never said anything on the internet that I've that's a lie. There are people out there that just straight up lie, that like famous people, that I know, and they've done well lying, and that's fine. But like I'm not gonna like take any advice from other people about that sort of shit because there's anything I know, it's like being able to say. I mean, and this is my personality. It's like I said, it's worked for me, and most people are not cut out for it. I think that that's true. And you just have to have like a really really high tolerance for people like throwing shit at you, from all different directions. But it's fine. I'm not like people cannot touch me financially right now, so I say what I want to say. You should try to get to. But you know what the issue is? Like most people that become super rich, they're also pussies, because they want to be richer. Like they're like, I'm not rich, but like I'm saying, like I know people that are like 10 millionaires. Are like, well, I want to get to 100 million. Once they get to 100 million, they want to get to a billion. You know.
Well, some
So
people who are really rich are based. Mark Andreessen, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk.
yeah, okay, I know them. Like I don't know. I know Mark really well. The others, like I've met Peter. Um, I've been in the same room as Elon. But they don't say what their real views are.
Mark is
You
like
can
my
guess
best
what,
friend.
huh?
Mark is like my best friend. He followed me on Twitter once.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying you don't know what his real based views are.
Yeah,
He's not totally candid. I'm just saying he's
I
a
figured
billionaire, but
most
he's not
people
totally.
aren't.
He's not. Yeah, but he's a billionaire. Nobody could do anything to him. What
Well,
he fears though is social. Be social. You can't go to those parties. I mean, I'm not dissing him. I'm just trying to say like he doesn't show his power level, and he's worth billions.
they could ruin the reputation of like the fund who his name is associated with.
Yeah, but he doesn't need that money.
I
The
guess
fund could change it. The fund can change its name. It's all about
to
like positionality.
A16Z.
Yeah, I mean, like Peter. I mean, Peter. Everyone knows what Peter believes. The who's like he's had to his dinners, but even he's never like explicitly said a lot of things, and he's at even a different level than Mark. As far as Elon, like you can guess, but Elon's been very careful. Well, kind of careful, I guess. But anyway, whatever. I mean, I'm not saying anything specific about what any of these guys have said. And I know them to various degrees, and I know various things that they've said. And they're billionaires, all of them. Elon's the richest person in the world right now, depending on what day it is. And yet even they have, although I do have to say Elon has like really put hate facts out there on X. And I think it takes being the richest man in the world that's extremely weird and disagreeable to go there. But it just shows you how difficult it is for most people, right? Because if he wasn't so weird, he wouldn't be doing that. Jeff Bezos never did that, you know.
So is Jeff
Warren Buffett.
Bezos just less weird?
Oh yeah, he's certainly less weird. And like I don't
I
know
guess he
Elon
took
personally.
he took the
Yeah,
conventional billionaire path of like donating to Democrat causes, and then like he, decided he was rich enough and retired to go party on yachts with his hot
yeah,
girlfriend.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I mean, Elon's definitely a weird person. I don't know him personally, but I know people that know him. He's very charismatic. He's very bizarre. He's pro-natalist. He's really concerned. Okay, I gotta go now, but like I will tell you, here's the thing that I know about Elon. He fucking wants the Kwisatz Haderach now. So I mean that is how you understand him. Okay. He wants the Kwisatz Haderach. He is scared of the thinking machines. Elon is motivated by extreme fear of artificial general intelligence, and people try to read into some of the things he says, but like that is what you need to know about him. That is what he's concerned about, and that's what I think I can say candidly from what I've heard. Like that's legit. That is his like lodestar.
Sounds all right. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and really enjoyed talking to you.
All right, my pleasure, bro.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode with Razib Khan. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Theo Jaffe podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Follow me on Twitter at Theo Jaffe, and subscribe to my Substack at theojaffe.com. All of these are linked in the description. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next episode.